What's up, folks? Welcome back in. How's it going, everybody? It's Monday. We're indulging in a little bit of mayhem. We are a tiny bit, just a tad late today, mostly because between the like midnight live stream we did and Best Armies of 40k, I was a little tired, so I ended up sleeping in, unfortunately. But we are live today. What I wanted to do today. So if you got my Best Armies Warhammer 40k video, I was very proud of that one. I think it came out pretty well. What I did in that video is I went through only events that used the most recent update for the Munitorum Field Manual. So anything that used old points for Death Guard, except for one event that had Grey Knight's point, which is cool, I did not include. However, that does mean that we didn't see interesting results from those events. And so what I want to do today is go through armies that, despite the fact they were playing in a dog shit meta that was old and outdated and absolutely dominated by Knights and Death Guard. And to be fair, most of these events were won by Knights and Death Guard. They still won, and they still saw top placing with what is otherwise in that format underpowered army. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And I have a couple of them picked out just for you. We've got some Dark Angels to talk about. We've got some World Eaters to talk about. If we wanted to jump into, we've got some T'au, some 6-0 T'au, which is always cool. Necrons, Adeptus, Custodes. If we wanted to jump into X and 1s, there's things like Tyranids and Chaos Demons popping up, Thousand Suns as well. So if anyone has a faction they would particularly like to see us talk about, then we will hop into that one. Otherwise, I will just start by going down the line. And I think I will rip that Band-Aid off by talking a little bit about World Eaters. We saw a couple of solid results from World Eaters, mostly with draws on their record. We saw both an X01 and an X02 in a differential scoring system. By the way, you want to see the most amazing finals for... It did a Chapter Approved 2025 event using differential scoring. Look at these fucking draws, chat. It's insane. It's blows my mind that people still use this format in singles events in this particular mission structure because the draws are crazy. Look at this. Literally top 5 of the event. This was not even a large event. Top 5, so it's not like we're pulling from this huge sample size and just getting the people who are the most closely skilled. Top 5 of the event all had 2 draws. This is insane. This is so insane. But that's okay. We can talk about a little bit of... Let me grab the... is this correct? Is this the... No, here we go. Here's the actual event page. The EG Grand Slam. I think that's Element Games Grand Slam over in the UK. It was won by Imperial Knights. Blech, who cares? It'll throw up a little bit in my mouth. But we saw Dan Brick over here go 4-0-1 with Berserker Warband, which was sick. Lots and lots of interesting wins. Yeah, it's gonna be super cool because I think people were finding their way around these broken factions, right? Slowly but surely they were finding their way. And I think a lot of people stopped playing them, right? Because there's just no like skill expression. It was like fucking roll your face to the keyboard. And an interesting thing about 40k, it's maybe not the case for a lot of other competitive games, is that a lot of the people who play do so because they're like this like real kind of spike mentality where they want to showcase like cool interactions to people and how good they are at 40k at resolving on the table. Like just doing nothing and winning is not actually interesting for most, I would say most high level competitive players in 40k. Just getting the W by doing nothing burns people out of the game immediately. It's not like, TCGs or something where there is a culture around like, just sort of winning off of stats. Most people want to be able to outthink their opponent. And so there's a lot of people who do not play those factions. And as soon as those factions get cut out of the meta, I think Thousand Suns are really well suited to do well. That's the one I'm worried about right now. So many other factions immediately pop up to the top. The next couple of weeks before we hit a new Munitorum are going to be insane. So I'm super excited. Plus we have new Votann coming around the corner. Some, you know, the Space Wolves and Black Templars are still getting sussed out, I think, a little bit. For the most part, it seems like Black Templars have been built out, but it looks like Space Wolves are still undergoing a little bit of some transformation. So yeah, it should be interesting. It should be good. But anyway, here's what we got. Dan Brook over here running Juggernaut Lord with Helm of Brazen Ire. So that's the minus 1 damage hat, right? Which is interesting on a Juggernaut Lord, but he does have a bunch of wounds. So it does make sense because he can make that damage reduction go quite a ways. Although I think he was reduced to a 3+ save in the most recent update, or in the Codex, I should say. Because he used to be a 2+, and so damage characteristic or damage like survivability modifiers on him were crazy. The Juggernaut Lord is 3+ save, 7 wounds, so minus 1 damage goes pretty far on him. I imagine we are putting him into a 20-man. Oh snap! There are 50 Khorne Berserkers, chat. Hot diggity damn. So we have one with Karn, one with Master of Executions with Berserker Glaive, one with Lord on Juggernaut. I imagine that we put the Master of Executions into one of the big units because he gives them enhanced speed. So we get plus movement from the Lord on Juggernaut because he makes you movement characteristic 10. So he gives the whole unit +2 speed, and then the Master of Executions gives you reroll, advance, and charge rolls. We're Berserker Warband, so we can pay SEP to advance and charge Berserker units. So the rerolls go super far there. And then we have a unit of 10, probably with Karn, although don't quote me on that, inside the Chaos Rhino. We have double Chaos Spawn, double Forge Fiend, Goremongers, a Hellbrute, and a Jackal. I think the Hellbrute usually a bit of a late game piece because you can create these situations where your opponent has to like double or triple charge to kill the Khorne Berserker units. You get a bunch of fights on death. It's pretty good. And the Hellbrute gets to bounce in between all of those and get multiple activations out of that. That's insane. 50 Khorne Berserkers almost won a GT. Hot diggity damn. What a sick result. That's super cool. With a draw as well. And it's not like there's I guess there's double Chaos Spawn and 2 cultist units, right? Goremongers plus Jackals. So there is a reasonable amount of utility in the army. It's not like it's all Berserkers all the time. But 0 8-bound. This man took an oath. She swore a solemn vow to not play meta and just took nothing, no 8-bound, all Berserkers. What a Chad. What an absolute Chad. Yeah, this list is so sick. Got many Hellbrutes. Hellbrutes are cool. I do think, well, we saw it for a hot minute before they nerfed Demonic or Khorne Demonkin into Oblivion, which was entirely unjustified in my opinion. One thing that makes me sad about Warhammer 40k is that they oftentimes mess things up, but sometimes they mess things up in places where it doesn't matter, right? Making Khorne Demonkin broken because you accidentally wrote the rules in a way that makes them like that's really stupidly strong is fine because the thing that's benefiting is fucking Khorne Demonkin. Who cares? This detachment that has no synergy with the army whatsoever has a just bad detachment ability, but has 2 cool things going for it. 1, you get to take Scarbrand in World Eaters, which is great. 2, you can put Bloodletters where the fuck you want. That's great. That was obviously a mistake. I think very clearly Bloodletters being able to basically jump almost into engagement with you was fucking nuts. But the detachment you put in it was so dog shit that was the only thing it had going for it. And it made you look at all the other things in the detachment in a different way. Maybe I can make Hellbrutes work because we can give them Twin Linked and Lance at the start of the fight phase, and then they charge it, they fight out of it, and they just bounce around. They have Twin Linked Lance for the whole fight phase. It goes crazy, right? That's cool. You would never take that in other detachments because they don't have that synergy, but you would never really consider the synergy if the detachment itself was already not very good. And then they nerfed all that stuff on a detachment that was underperforming. If you make a mistake and you make a thing that's overpowered, but the thing that's overpowered is buffing something that's super bad, it just means it's average. It's just an average power level. And they absolutely ruined the whole detachment and made World Eaters into a mono detachment faction. And that it made me so mad when they did that. Not only because I had like 10 games into with Khorne Demonkin and I thought the detachment was rad, but also because like just give them something else to play, dude. Every other detachment's trash except for Berserker Warband. Give them anything. Just annoying. All right, chat. We do have more World Eaters to talk about. The Glenperor GT over here in, this is Sweden? Yeah, Sweden. I like looking at these places on the maps. I also, so BCP recently added this thing, which I actually think is really cool, where they geolocate all the events on a map every time you search for them. I think that's so rad. This is the coolest thing that BCP has ever done. You can say what you will about their recent updates, and many of them were buggy. I still run into bugs with the new BCP overlay and everything, or the new BCP management set tools. However, this is sick. I love this. You get to see where all the events are. I wish you could scroll wheel them, but I love that. It's especially like puts in context to the globalism of the Warhammer 40k community, especially because we're seeing like results in Africa, like South Africa, and in China and the Philippines. That's cool. We had Colombia last week as well. Like the game is slowly but surely taking over the entire world. It's so sick. Anyway, chat. Any Adeptus Mechanicus to play? I don't believe that we have any Adeptus Mechanicus to talk about. Unfortunately. Which is too bad. Gonna play your Unga Bunga Chaos Demons list from 1st to 3rd edition. Detachments? Don't need no CE detachments. Just play Demonic Incursion. It's super good. Just play Demonic Incursion and just thrive with a 6-inch deep strike all the time. I'm gonna make a video either today or tomorrow. If you're a patron or a channel member, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get access to it. It'll be a patron video, but I'm gonna make a video. I'm gonna break down my demons list for Nova, because I don't know. I'm many games in with that list, probably like 15 to 20, and I've lost like one, which I almost certainly will not continue in a super major. But it's shocked me. But I'll talk about that in a video. Speaking of Unga Bunga demons, that's gonna be the ungiest bungiest of demon lists. I'm excited. It's gonna be wild. I got all my demons on my painting table right now. I'm almost done with all my Plaguebearers. There they are. Can't really see them because my lights aren't on because I forgot to turn them on. I got my Plaguebearers. I made a little sloppity bile piper. He's still getting washed, so he's a little bit weird. But I made a little cape for him. He's wearing some wings because of from the Plaguebearer kit. But I realized I didn't have a sloppy bile piper, so I made one. I had a 3D print with a little bell, and then I gave him the pipes from the Plaguebearer kit, so he could be a piper. And I figure that's good enough. He's also like a full head taller than all the other Plaguebearers because I didn't realize how big the models were when I 3D printed him. He's significantly larger, which is only a downside for me because he has no line of sight effects. Yeah, he's a silly little goober. He's even got like the Sloppity Bile Piper has like a little tricorn hat because he's a little jester with bells on it, with bells on the end. And he's got 3 little horns that come out, which actually look like the hat, which I didn't think about at the time, but in hindsight, it's really cool. All right, so winner of this event was Emil Solderholm, who went 302, 3 wins, 15 20 20, 2 draws, 10-10. Obviously, this is differential scoring. I don't think we can see what the actual results of those games were, unless it tells us in the. Oh, it does. So he did win his finals game, 86-83. I actually didn't know that they did this. I should do this. I should look at this more often. And he did win his semifinals game. What the fuck is this result? I bet they played a really low scoring mission, like hidden supplies or something. Can we see the player packet? Will I be able to understand the player packet, or is it in Swedish? Oh, it's in English. Nice. That's nice of them. It does not say what the missions are. Womp. They played Games Workshop terrain, but they used differential scores. Interesting. That's so wild. Oh well. A 37-32 is a wild result, but that does mean he did score higher than all of his opponents. So he did actually go 5-0. Although obviously the actual pairing, the actual tournament points he got for those are different because of the differential scoring. So, he's running again Berserker Warband. This time 30 Berserkers instead of 50. We've really pushed into Berserkers. Everyone has dropped all of their 8-bound. Is that recent? Oh, I guess thinking about it, there is no universe, I guess, right, in which an 8-bound unit trades evenly into Death Guard, right? Like, it just will not happen. It will never, ever happen. They will just get killed immediately by a single activation from a 90-point Heavy Blight Launcher blow drone. So there's basically no reason to take them. Whereas Khorne Berserkers eat the shot. They lose 5 models. That sucks, but it's fine. And then they get a reactive move in response. And then all they're doing is delivering a character who can likely kill that unit by himself, right? Between Karn and the Master of Executions. So I imagine that's part of the idea there. That's part of the arithmetic, the mental arithmetic. Does WYSIWYG mean models can't have been modded or kitbashed? Not usually. Essentially, all competitive events have a system by which they will approve either conversions or kit bashes. So I need to, once I finish painting all my stuff, so once I finish painting this guy, basically, I need to send pictures to the TOs to get them approved before the event. And that's basically always the case. 99.9% of the time, as long as you are not trying to game the system by like increasing your line of sight or hull measurements or stuff like that, and you're not changing the model in some way that's going to be mechanically impactful, at least not too much, then you're good to go. If you are kit bashed, but it's still obvious what you are, so you use the official miniatures, but you converted them, that typically doesn't require approval. But if you have like alternate minis or you have like heavy conversions and stuff like that, you will require approval. But I don't know if I think one time I saw someone's like Nightbringer conversion get rejected from an event. But I think that was like the only time. And in cases where you have like a heavily converted model, oftentimes it's useful to just have an appropriate proxy or an appropriate official model like on backup, just in case. In my case, my grid and clean ones are 3D printed, or at least my one grid and clean one is. My Bellicor is a conversion. And if worst case scenario, my housemate owns a bunch of grid and clean ones, and I could just use theirs. I also have 3D printed grid and clean ones as well that are very similar to the official proportions. But so basically every event allows kit bashing, conversions, stand-in models, alternative models, 3D prints to a reasonable degree, as long as the TOs approve it. But you should always get TO approval. That's always like the biggest thing is like, people come in with like, oh, I'll run whatever as whatever, but they don't get TO approval. And then suddenly like the line of sight comes up in a big way or something. And it's like, oh boy, what are we doing here, my guy? That's always weird. But it is important because obviously like a big part of the hobby, a big part of the game is converting your miniatures and using custom models. And if they disallow that in competitive play, I think it would wildly restrict not only the size of people who would be interested in competitive play, but also the character of people who would be interested. Oh, excuse me, knocked my microphone. Like, for example, you get these people who are super into customizing their miniatures, right? All they want to do is bring huge, like big, impressive models that they've created themselves, or models that they've modded up to follow a storyline, or to mesh with their Space Marine chapter, or with their subfaction, or whatever that is. And if you shut all those people out from competitive play, the visual appeal of competitive events drops dramatically. If all you play is monopose standard stock models, immediately the events don't look as good. And also, a lot of the people who are there like for fun and to have a good time also don't show up. So all you get is hyper competitive people using stock models. And I think that the culture of the competitive community shifts to the point where a lot of people aren't interested in joining. So very important that event organizers keep that in mind when they are constructing their events, so that they are open to modeling. That's one of the reasons I'm such a big proponent of an end to true line of sight and to hull measurement, because it removes any mechanical impact that the miniature can have on the game. And if you divorce the game piece from the miniature, people are free to do whatever they want with their miniatures. As long as you can tell what it is when you look at it on the tabletop, you can do anything you want. You can pose it, you can base it, you can convert it, you can add accoutrements, you can make a proxy, whatever. And it frees people up to be so much more creative with their armies. And the push towards like hardcore true line of sight has been one of the worst mistakes 40k has made, in my opinion. Anyway, let's move on. There would be a riot. Yeah, exactly. For sure. So even like, World Championships of Warhammer, US Open events allow 3D prints and proxies and stuff. Obviously, you got to get it all okayed. The one thing that they vehemently disallow is reading over their player packet is they do not allow you to use a stand-in or a 3D print that's a recreation of an existing model. So what you can't do is go, here's my can I play with this 3D print and it's just a photo scan of an existing Games Workshop model, or it's pulled from a video game, because sometimes they take like the STL or the OBJ file from a game file and they rip that and then they 3D print it. They do not allow that. Now, in many cases, I don't know how they would tell, at least like without scrutinizing the model. But that is the hard line, and that makes sense, right? If you're gonna bring a proxy model or an alternate model, at least make an effort. Don't just steal the IP from GW. So, all right. We've talked a lot about that. That was a great question. A little bit of a tangent. But this list has 2 Forge Queens and 2 Chaos Rhinos. I don't know. It's about all else we have to talk about. For World Leaders here, I'm so interested in the fact that, and I guess this is a development in World Leaders because we haven't seen World Leaders do well in so long. I'm interested in the fact that we have basically entirely left 8-bound behind. And I think that makes so much sense. They are too expensive. An 8-bound unit is like 130 points. Is that right? 8-bound are 150 points. They're 50 points per model. Now, they're fast, and they have 1 million attacks, which is good. However, they are not 50 points fast. And the fact that their ability only triggers on non-monsters and vehicles, gives them +1 to hit, is pretty annoying. If they could get +1 to hit against monsters and vehicles and a beaconed it to other things, I would understand. However, I don't like that it is restrictive. And I also don't like that they're so fucking expensive. For a strength 8 model. Now, they go to strength 10 in Berserker Warband, but you're still, in many cases, against heavy targets, you're hitting on 3s with little to no access to rerolls, right? AP2. So you get 15 attacks for 150 points, 10 go through. Let's say you win on 4s against a T10 target. You're giving them 5 saves, then make 2, you do 6 damage. For 150 points, you have to deliver into melee. Not good. Yuck. Yucky. What if you want to use an older model for its updated counterpart? That one is that's a really interesting, that's a weird gray area, because there isn't an official rule. The rule is that your miniatures have to be represented by the equivalent Citadel miniature, right? That's what the core rulebook says. The models on the table have to be represented by the Citadel miniature of that unit, right? It would have to be ruled on a case by case basis whether or not you're able to use previous editions of that miniature. Now, for 100% of the time, the base size must be correct. But whether or not you can use older versions of a model that are smaller is a big gray area. Now, like people are saying in chat, the rice peel-off is a cooking method. Says that you mod the base to make it stand closer to the same height. Yeah, that is the way to make it so that there's like no argument, right? That would very rarely be called into question. However, that's not like an official rule anywhere. The extremes that I have is, and part of this is a little bit of a rebellion against like the dumb, more recent models, but I have a bunch of 2nd edition Tyranid Biovores. I think I've brought this up on the stream a bunch of times. So the current Tyranid Biovore is a huge, pull this bad boy up. He's a huge guy. I don't have any of these models. This guy right here. He's enormous. He's on an 80 mil base. He's literally the size of most of the monsters in the faction. However, he's a 6 wound infantry model. That's insane. The Biovores that I have are 2nd edition, which is this big, which is about maybe 20% the size So obviously, it is definitely probably not correct for you to be using this guy as the correct Biowar. That's what I have right now. I haven't played Tyranids IRL since they've updated the Biowars because I can't stand them. But that's the funniest example that I have. Whether or not that's legal is a big gray area. If you want it to be, if you want it to be all in the up and up, you should check with your local TOs. And talk to them about what, or your local event organizers, and talk to them about what would be appropriate. Yeah, the only rules that you must be represented by the Citadel miniature, and this is a Citadel miniature of a Tyranid Biowar, so that's the weird part. Now what I want to do, chat. The new Catan will be wildly bigger than the current one. Yeah, and that one's gonna be big. The new Nightbringer, but we are gonna see a ton of Nightbringers on like 80 mil bases or 100 mil bases or whatever they got the new Catan shards on that are the old 40 mil base Nightbringer. Although to be fair, that guy was super tall and skinny, so he might actually stand up correctly on the new one. He might actually be similar in height, although I don't think that's the case. I think the new one's very much bigger. Making a Soul Grinder stand-in from a Mega Gargant. From a Mega Gargant. Oh, like a big knight, a big giant guy from Age of Sigmar? I thought you meant like an Orc Gargant. So it was like a epic miniature, epic 40k. That one's gonna be tough. If you use like him at his full height, it's gonna be weird. I don't know how big of a base these guys are on either. Are they on the 160s or the 130s or whatever? I think it's 160 is what the Soul Grinder's on now. I guess I could look it up. This is literally just the Warhammer website. $130. So I think his base size is smaller. And I imagine that the Soul Grinder is significantly shorter and squatter. Yeah, they're on 160s. So that one might be a little bit tough to pull off. Can you use Bayard's Revenge as an Emperor's Champion if you stuff it onto a 40 millimeter base? Is that the diorama of the guy stabbing the orc? Oops. Bayard's Revenge. Yeah, the guy stabbing the orc. Oh, thanks, Google AI. The first time you've ever been useful in your life. Yeah, I think almost 100% you could use that for sure. I've even seen that done. I think in the past, if you put it on the smaller base, I think a lot of this stuff is scenic, and you can actually, it's not, you don't have to include it all. He is just an Emperor's Champion, though, right? Actually, so yeah, he's literally an Emperor's Champion. There is an appropriate stand-in document somewhere on the Warhammer community site, and I believe that he's counted in there, but I don't know. Took his arms and legs. For the Soul Grinder thing? Dakota, who do I think is on the chopping block of the data slate? With Death Guard, Chaos Knights, and Paralyzed push out. I think Thousand Suns for sure. If you're a Thousand Suns player, I would brace for changes to Zangor Enlightened and probably Needleth Vortex Beasts. Beyond that, I don't know. I wouldn't be too shocked to see Black Templars get a little nudge. Some of their character options are like ludicrously cheap. And their some of the vehicles that get like bonuses, like the Repulsor Executioner, is like kind of wild. That data sheet's insane. So I don't know if we have the data for that, though. I think they might want to wait a release cycle for that to happen, for that to sort of get figured out. Other than that, I don't know. Eldar, actually, probably. I think you would see like maybe Falcons or Wave Serpents get hit, like something to curb the Warhost build. Although, interestingly, I don't know if the Warhost build is quite as good if you're not playing against Knights all the time. You have a Hive Tyrant kitbashed is on the lower body of a Trigon. He's the right size base, though. Yeah, he's probably fine. That sounds cool as hell, actually. Generally speaking, if your model doesn't have a bunch of guns on it, like if it's not a shooting platform, so like a character like this guy or a hive tyrant who's like a melee support monster, and you make it physically larger so it's harder to hide, it's only bad for you and no one will have a problem. It is clear that you're trying to do it because it's cool as fuck. And nobody's gonna have an issue with it. Generally speaking, an event will rule that you can accept all of the downsides of a converted miniature, like additional lines of sight, or blocking your own attacks, but you can never receive a benefit from the lines of sight. So you can't use like the parts you added for line of sight, for example. That's generally the case. We had on stream very famously, and I might do like a recap of this interaction because it was one of the most insane ones I've ever seen. At one point, we did have somebody convert. They converted a greater demon to make its wings larger, and then used the wings for line of sight. And their opponent was like, "What the fuck?" And they just did it. It was insane. One of the most wild games I ever live streamed. That was I had less of a policy of stepping out on sportsmanship issues in that game, and I think I might have if that had happened nowadays. Modeling for disadvantage, exactly. Hoping they give Guard, Rust Commander, and Death Riders drop. I would love to see Death Riders be competitive with Attila and Rough Riders. It's crazy because they're so much worse. Like, I don't know why you'd ever play Death Riders if you had Rough Riders in the tank, because they're just like slower. Like, okay. All right, thank you, I guess. It's wild. They have like better mount attacks, but they're slower and don't have a melt lance. Okay, cool. Sweet. I'm worse at doing utility stuff. Anyway, chat. They have a reactive move. Yeah, but like, how often does that matter? Right? Would you rather have a reactive move or a D6 damage melee weapon? I don't know. I think I would rather be 15-inch movement and blow up tanks. All right. Should we get back to lists, folks? That was a good tangent, though. I like talking about modeling and stuff, especially because I've thought a lot about it in the last couple of days. The mini put on screen, you'd put into a painting competition, but not run on the tabletop. It is very cool. I think that's the idea of that is to put it on the tabletop, and they just announced earlier today. They just announced these new dioramas for Warhammer Plus, which are almost exactly the same vibe. This guy is so cool, though. This model is sick. I don't like that they painted all of the different parts of his pants the same color, though. It looks really weird. Like, he's clearly wearing a greave, right, with a boot underneath, and then like poof pants. But they painted them all the same color, so it looks like he's just wearing like these weird PJs. It's very strange. But that is the classic Ian color scheme. Plus, he's wearing like van braces, but then also this like coat, and they're both the same color, so they blend in. It's kind of annoying. I do not like the color scheme, but I do like the miniature. It's very cool, and some people are going to do insane things with that miniature. The cool thing that you can do with it too, and this is the hallmark of a good diorama miniature, is that if you simply remove it from the diorama, which I assume you can do, it looks like you can, and you don't glue it onto the Wraith Lord here, you can use this as something else. Like, this is a cool marker for like sticky objectives or an objective marker or something, or like a stratagem or battle shock token, whatever. And then you just put this guy on a 32, and then suddenly he's a Farseer, right? And I think that is sick because the model's really cool either way. And that is the good hallmark of a good display miniature. Same with this guy. I think you just take this grave off, and suddenly you just have another necromancer guy. Pretty cool. The niche used for death guards is in recon, scramblefills plus reactive move. Oh, I guess so. Yeah, that's like kind of cute. Sometimes I see 0 to 1. I think Nemo's playing this evening, and I think he's running 1. I've never seen them do anything in any of his games, but that's almost certainly the technology that they're using for them on. That makes total sense, chat. By the way, we have 2 T5S2 Invitational Group Finals scheduled at the same time tonight. What I think I'm going to do, and I'll redirect you to the first of these immediately after this event goes down. What I think I'm going to do is commentate one of them, and I'm going to try. I have a separate spectator account that I used to use for simulcasting games, and I'm going to try to stream that on a second stream event on YouTube. So if you want to watch the second game, it will be live, but I just won't be commentating it. I think is going to be what the deal is. All right, I wanted to talk about Dark Angels. Should we talk about some Dark Angels, chat? Let's talk about Dark Angels. So over here, the 40k Circuit Breaker. 32-player event in Indiana. In Indianola, Indiana. That threw me. Indianola. Wow, okay. Excuse me, Iowa. Indianola, Iowa? Jesus. That's blowing my mind. I had to like double check there. I was like, I thought Iowa was Iowa, but then it says the name is weird. Anyway, that confused me for a second. We saw a tie in the finals. Another tie. Challenger cards doing their thing. Kyle McCord tied with Chris Adams for a 4-0-1. Good old Iowa. Kyle, so I've actually live streamed Kyle a bunch of times at team events. He is a Dark Angels faction fucking master. Kyle might be one of the greatest. He's almost certainly. Jan Reisenauer might be the best Dark Angels player I've seen, but he plays a bunch of different stuff sometimes. Kyle is probably the best Dark Angels player I've streamed IRL, almost certainly. 4-0-1 with Wrath of the Rock. He ran Azrael, no Lionel Johnson. We cut that guy. We gave him the boot for being a silly goober. Plus a combi weapon lieutenant, intercessor squad for the backline, double Centurion Devastators. Now, I'm interested because a lot of people talk shit about the Centurion Devastator squads, and I don't know if I understand the hate, because it makes total sense to me that this is a faction, or this is a detachment that has huge buffs for specifically infantry. However, it only gets 1 oath target. Centurion Devastators are infantry and don't need an oath target. So they get benefited from like basically every single buff that the detachment can give them. And also, they work independently from the melee stuff. So it makes total sense that we would be playing Centurion Devastators. And when we've watched this faction go, and this detachment go, and they pop off, the Centurion Devastators go absolutely insane. Obviously, they need particular board states in order to do that. You have to be on objectives and stuff. But it's very difficult to interact with them because they're just little infantry. They can wander around walls. They can advance and shoot with tactical mastery. And they just rock like 3 twin-length las cannons and like 8 missile launcher shots into you with hit rerolls and probably murder you. We've then got triple Deathwing Knights. We are running all Maces of Absolution because we cut the Chaplain. Sometimes we do see a Chaplain in this attachment to give one of a sword unit plus 1 to wound. Not doing that today, just running all Maces to keep the character cost light. There's a 6-man Eradicator squad, which is interesting. A Scout squad, Sternguard veterans. That's for Azrael to hop into. Utility coming from Vanguard veteran squads. These guys usually, these guys are nice in Wrath of the Rock specifically because you're stacking multiple defensive attributes on top of each other. So already your T4 infantry is much harder to kill. Probably 20% harder to kill than everyone else's because it's already -1 to be wounded from almost every attack. Anything that beats their toughness value. So any strength 5 or higher, immediately you get -1 to wound. And they have an invuln save on top of that. So we get to put those two things back to back. The Vanguard veterans very often like survive a little bit longer than Jump Pack Assault Intercessors. Their incoming damage isn't generally as good against as the Jump Pack Intercessors, and they don't have as good shooting because they don't have plasma pistols. But They are slightly harder to kill, and if you compound that with a -1 wound effect, they become actually kind of significantly harder to kill. So your utility is actually good at surviving shooting, which is pretty wild. What's interesting is that we have no vehicles at all. Literally none. So first of all, we've blanked Bring It Down as a draw, period, right? That's not even, you can't even kill an Impulsor to get Bring It Down. That just disappears. So you have to bump up into Centurion Devastators and Deathwing Knights. That does mean that there's no delivery system for the Eradicators, but I imagine we can give them Advance and Shoot for a command point, which is fine. Or I guess, we can Strategic Reserve them and then Rapid Ingress, or just hop them off the table edge to shoot at stuff, which is, I imagine, a lot of times what ends up happening. And especially since this is a detachment that really wants it super wants to like sandpaper you and get stuff to either charge for the Deathwing Knights to get movement, or that it can just peek lines of sight and kill you with a Centurion Devastator squad. Forcing you to screen out both Deathwing Knight drops and the Eradicator squad is going to force you to feed it your utility, and that prevents you from movement blocking. That reduces your capacity to score, and it reduces your board presence, which is a big benefit for these relatively slower armies, right? Most of the infantry in this army is move 5. One of the best ways that you have to deal with armies like this is just playing keep away from the Deathwing Knights. But if you have to screen out so they don't just shoot you to death, then that's much harder to do. Yeah, just a bunch of tough infantry. Super cool. I'm actually surprised not to see a Land Raider Redeemer, but just because I saw the Eradicator squad and I was like, oh, there's going to be a big tank here. No, they're just ground pounding. They're just vibing. But you can tell it's a little bit of there's some anti-knights technology, right? An Eradicator squad, if it gets in melter range, is probably good for a knight kill unless they spike their invuln saves. The Centurion Devastators we've watched actually laser cannon down huge amounts of damage onto knights. Azrael's a pretty good late game punch into things like knights. We don't have like the ancient weapons captain, but I guess we don't necessarily need that, because if we could do enough damage with the shooting, the Deathwing Knights should be able to sort of roll things out from there. And what's interesting is that we tied Death Guard to the finals. Whoa, let's go, chat. We have defeated the monster, potentially. It was a Virulent Victorium, I guess, so it wasn't the classic Mortarian's Hammer, which might be a little tougher. I actually don't know the specifics of the matchups there. I imagine, because you're not focused on vehicles, the Mortarian's Hammer, like Deathshred Terminators dropping on you, is probably a little bit tougher to deal with, because you don't necessarily kill them with Eradicators. And if they don't do it on objectives, the Centurion Devastators are inconsistent as well. And they can, if they just, you run out of screening a lot of times in these styles of lists, because most of you don't have very much utility, right? There's a scout squad, there's an intercessor squad, and then the Vanguard veterans. The VGV get killed by Plaguebearer crawlers in a turn or two. And then your opponent just gets to pick like the Eradicator squad and then just kill it with a Lord of Contagion, and pick Azrael's unit and kill it with a Lord of Contagion or whatever. But if you don't have that, I bet that matchup's much easier to do. So much easier to play around with. Oh, there's Mortarion as well, which is actually kind of awkward for the matchup too. A full Eradicator brick, and we're up against Mortarion. Let's go, dude. But way to go, Kyle, with the old Dark Angels here. That's very nice. We do have some other results that I wanted to talk about. There's some Thousand Suns that did well at 6++ GT, I think. I think I mentioned this in my video earlier. It's mostly just like normal Grand Coven stuff. I actually didn't talk about this one because the other Grand Coven list that went 5-0 this weekend that was played in events using the new points update was so interesting because it ran fucking 10 Scarab Cult Terminators. So I didn't talk about this one. This one's relatively standard. It's an Incandium Exalted Disc Sorcerer, double Infernal Masters, Magnus the Red Sorcerer, Zangor Shaman for utility, Rubric Marines for all the characters to hop into, a Rhino to carry a Rubric Marines around and give them +1 to wound, double Mutalith Vortex Beasts, 18 Fatecaster Great Bow Zangor Enlightened. No way these guys don't go up to like 110 points in the new update, plus a Zangor unit. It's like the most basic, maybe the most basic Grand Coven ever. I guess the Rhino's a little different. The people actually have been cutting the Rhino from a lot of their lists because the Thousand Suns one, for whatever reason, is really expensive. Probably because Rubric Marines are one of the most effective infantry units to deliver with a Rhino. But the fact that it's more expensive than the Death Guard one, which gives you wound rerolls, is insane to me. Especially because the Chaos Rhino, the Thousand Suns Rhino, has caveats on the things that it buffs, whereas the Death Guard Rhino just buffs off fire support. That said, I imagine the Death Guard Rhino probably pops up 5 points. Oh, I guess it didn't, so I guess we're just eating it. It's still at 85, I believe. I'm gonna fact check myself there. I believe the Death Guard Rhino is 85 right now, which is like insane. It is 85. It's 5 points less, even though its ability is strictly better. And it carries 12 Plague Marines. But delivering 2 units of Rubric Marines and giving all their psychic weapons +1 to wound it's pretty good, I guess. I guess it's good. We did have undefeated Daemons though, down at the second place placer there. No Ahriman. Yeah, unfortunately, Ahriman got absolutely pooped on in the more recent update. Ahriman was in a really interesting spot. He wasn't it wasn't a great spot, I guess, for him because it wasn't like a dynamic way to play him. But in the index, he would generate you so many Kabbalistic ritual points that you just took him as a battery. He would just feed your army ability. And now he just casts 1 at +1. I think if they made him cast 2 at +1, so he was like a little tiny baby Magnus, I think you would see Ahriman all the time. But he's only 1 cast. He's kind of expensive. And he gets a casting buff, which is nice, but it's tough to justify that. He's also like, I guess his gun's better now. It used to be 1 shot, which is like really sort of obnoxious. And he's good in melee, but if he was AP2, he would be a lot nicer in melee. I don't know. T-Sun's Rhino slams. I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong. +1 wound is good. Is it better than full wound rerolls though? All the time? Like, imagine if you just could get full wound rerolls on anything that wasn't on an objective. Because if you have a Thousand Suns Rhino that's facing down an objective, people are just not going to go on the objective. They're going to counterplay. But if the Rhino just gave you wound rerolls on Arcane Vortex Infernal Master guy all the time, it would be nuts. That'd be crazy. Obviously, they can't do that because it's too strong. But I don't know why they decided to do it in Death Guard. It doesn't make sense. Let's talk about Chaos Demons, though. He's kind of baby Magnus. He should be baby Magnus. I love this list, chat. I almost talked about this one on the video this morning, but it wasn't 5-0, and I'm trying to restrict my my results, my analysis to 5-0 armies because it frankly it saves on editing time. I'll be honest with you, those videos take a really long time. I'm gonna try to do more of the slideshow format though. I figured out a new workflow that makes it a little bit easier. But what I'll probably do is do less of the like datasheet pop-ups like I used to do, and more of the slideshow things, and more of the the lists in the video. So this is a list after my own heart. It's running Be'lakor, a great unclean one, Lord of Change, Rodriguez, Scarbrand. I think I'm almost literally playing this list in on Wednesday. I think my list is exactly the same. The utility is slightly different. But Demonic Incursion obviously is the index attachment, so you get 6-inch deep strikes when you're Holy Within Shadow. So when you take objectives in the center of the table and you push the shadow forward. But the big thing here is that it's like this huge stat check. You put 2 T13 bodies in front of your opponent. One of them has a 4+ and feel no pain, so your opponent is kind of disincentivized to attack it. And then you get to play funny range games with the Lord of Change. The Lord of Change is really weird because I think he only works in this kind of list where you kind of like you hit a critical mass of greater demons where you can force like 100 wounds at T10+ into your opponent's face, and the Lord of Change just gets to do whatever he wants for a while, and your opponent can't waste time dealing with him. So they have to shoot Rodriguez down because Rodriguez will mess up their control of primary objectives. They have to shoot Scarbrand down because Scarbrand will kill them, and they want to shoot the Great Unclean One down because it's annoying. So the Lord of Change gets to activate like every turn and do a bunch of damage. And then from the back line, this I really is really interesting. I really like this. So we have 2 Plaguebearer units. They're OC2. They get +1 to charge, and they can 6-inch deep strike for a CP anywhere. So if you ever drop your screens in the back line, which you usually have to do like battle round 3 or 4, immediately Plaguebearers appear there and take your home objective. Every time. It never fails. This faction used to be broken when you could capture enemy outposts for 8 points. um, it's a 5-inch charge on a deep strike, potentially with a reroll, which is disgusting. We have a fiend unit, which is interesting. I don't know if there's particular technology there. I wonder if they kill 5 Space Marines on the charge. So they have 15 attacks, 3+ weapon skill, strength 5, AP 2, 2 damage, devastating. And they force enemy models to take battle shock or desperate escape checks, and they fall back. Yeah, whatever. If you swing into another utility unit for 110 points, they're move 12, so they're fast. So they're like a pretty solid utility unit. And I guess between them and another scrimmer unit, there's nothing to take in the faction that's 30, so you couldn't take another thing. So they might just be a straight upgrade to screamers to do more damage. But if you swing into 5 Space Marines, you should hit 10 times. You'll hand them 7 wounds and like a devastating. Call it 2 devastating and 5 saves. They have to pass 3 of the 5 saves to live. So if they don't AOC and you don't Draft of Terror, a Fiend unit should kill a 5-man medium infantry squad. Which is only remarkable because basically nothing in Demons does that. Which is insane. The faction has a huge this huge gaping hole to 5 intercessors. Like nothing in the faction reliably kills 5 intercessors. Fiends might be the answer, actually. The problem is you're always trading down. They're like 20 to 30 points, but there's not much you can do about that. Unfortunately, you just have to trade down with demons. But you make up for that with the superior maneuverability, so it's usually fine. They can take objectives. Yeah, they have an OC value. Everything in the faction but Nurglings has objective control. And they're OC2 as well, actually. So they're really good at taking objectives, in fact. They'll steal it from 5 OC1 infantry, which is really interesting. Oh, this list is selling me on Fiends of Slaanesh, chat. Fascinating. They're like big, though, right? Because they're on an oval? Or, yeah, they're on like a cavalry base, I think. Where's your base? This looks like a circle, but it's also almost not the case. Yeah, that looks like an oval. Yeah, they're at a cav base. So they have to pay for rotation. And it probably means that they have a tough time getting into melee. I wonder if they used 2-inch engagement here. I will never know. Interesting. I like that. I should play some games with Fiends. I did not know they were OC2, to be perfectly honest with you. That's actually a big deal. And then double screamers, which are just hyper fast. So they're move 14 beasts. They can do damage when they fly over people. They're anti-vehicle melee, so they do a little bit of damage. They move and block. They score objectives. They're super fast and nice. They're also randomly their base size is really small. They fit a lot of weird places. But anyway, I love this list. It's very cool. So you see the word Fiends, read it as friends. Yeah, that's why every chaos list is composed of many friends, many forged friends. They're all friends together, and Mauler friends. You know. Months ago, Liz got wrecked with them. Yeah, it was because of the what's the word? The Slaanesh detachment, Legion of Excess, was incredibly overpowered. Fiends would like project a -1 to hit bubble. You would give yourself fight on death, and then like a bunch of additional defensive abilities. You could pass wounds off of them, and you would charge an enemy, give yourself fight last or remove fight first to get full rerolls. Your opponent would hit you, be -1 to hit, probably not kill you. If they did kill you, you could fight. And then you would just swing and be full hit and wound rerolls with devastating wounds, just kill the whole unit in like one go. And sustained hits from all the characters, and +1 AP, so they're AP3 from the Keeper's Secrets. It was wild. It was crazy overpowered. That list destroyed for a hot minute. But it was definitely not as interesting as either Shadow Legion or Demonic Incursion. I think are both cooler. Let's talk about the Taps Games Grand Tournaments. This one did use the old points values, but we saw Necrons and Adeptus Custodes undefeated instead of Death Guard and instead of Knights. Those factions lost. They were defeated. They were defeated soundly. They could not beat the power of the Death Guard or the Custodes. So first place placer Scotty B over here. Good old Scotty B with an Awakened Dynasty. Running a Command Barge, Hexmark Destroyer, Saraz, Imhotep, the Stormlord, Orkan the Diviner, Royal Warden with Netherrealm, so stealth, plus a Scorpec Lord with an Aged German Blonde, so 4+ Final Pain. This is relatively standard stuff. We have a Necron Warrior unit plus a Ghost Arc, so we have a reactive reanimation from a Ghost Arc, a reactive reanimation from the Stratagem. Put them next to a Canoptech Reanimator, so they're also gaining an additional D3 on their reanimation. They can reroll it because they're a Necron Warrior unit. And there's probably Cryptothralls in there to attach, yep, and a Cryptothrall unit. We've got 2 units of 5 Flayed Ones, a Lich Guard squad. Whoa, that's cool. Usually you'll take the Royal Warden and dual attach it with Oracan into the Necron Warriors, so they get a 4+ invulnerable save, and then can also fall back and do stuff. Because otherwise they get locked in melee and you just live there forever, and you eventually die. But being able to fall back and then kill a bunch of infantry with Gauss Reapers is actually pretty relevant. However, I guess we could put Imhotep into the Lich Guard unit. Because I think, do they have to be leading something to get being led by somebody to get the minus one to be wounded ability? I actually don't know. Yes, they have to be being led by a noble. So we probably put Imhotep in there. That lets him get a little bit up close and personal to use his Mortal Wound Pulse, which oftentimes doesn't trigger in this army. Plus, it gives you another big Bulwark unit. That's pretty cool. 2 units of Scorpic Destroyers, Tombblade units, double Flayed Ones, 1 Doomsday Arc, and a Canoptic Spider. 1 Doomsday Arc. So we have a Spider that buffs the Command Barge, so another Resurrection Orb, so we can resurrect the Lich Guard or the Warriors. It gives +1 OC, so the Warriors can go up to OC 3, and the Lich Guard can go up to OC 2. And then all it wants to do is just vibe in the middle of the table. It is a 100 trillion OC backed up by the Spider. The Spider doesn't really buff anything else. There's literally 2 vehicles in the army. Okay. But I guess, like, are you gonna try to kill? I guess, like, if your opponent has anti-tank shooting, you're just gonna shoot the Doomsday Arc, like, immediately, right? And just try to kill it. Oh, there's also the Ghost Arc. So I guess there's 3 vehicles. So it keeps the Ghost Arc alive too. But that's so interesting. A Spider in an army with very few vehicles is wild. And then it's like basically 1 gun plus all the anti-infantry shooting from all the little stuff, which is just the Doomsday Arc, which is mostly there to keep your opponent's head down, I imagine. Because you can't just like post up and let a Doomsday Arc shoot you on turn 1. Because it's not an amazing chance, but there's a non-zero chance it just accidentally kills you. And you don't want to just let it take your pieces for free. So you have to, it forces you to deploy back a little bit, and then you can't like full army activate into any of these individual units, which is what the army's trying to avoid. Wild. What a list, chat. This army's crazy. I don't know if I've ever seen an Awakened Dynasty like this that just almost entirely eschews damage output, right? It has like it's okay anti-infantry, right? There's Gauss Flare arrays on the DDA and the Ghost Arc. Plus the Necron Warriors shoot 1 trillion times with Reapers. You have the characters can do a little bit, right? Illuminor Saraz is okay at fighting. Scorpic Lord's pretty good. And then 2 units of Scorpic Destroyers for counterpunch, but that's basically it. And the Lich Guard, like they'll kill 1 wounders or whatever. They're like 3 attacks each, 1 damage, which is not that exciting. Yeah, 3 attacks each, strength 6, AP 2, 1 damage. They get +1 to hit at least, so they hit on 2s and probably wound you on 3s, but it's not like, you know, knocking down knights or whatever. But it's just gonna outlast you, I guess. What a chat over here. Spider gives Fiona Paint to all Necrons from Mortal Wounds. Oh, because of a Gloom Prism? Is that why we're taking it? Interesting. I didn't think about that. Jam the midboard. Yeah, I guess it's also maybe a 1,000 Suns counter too, right? Because it gives you the Gloom Prism, Feel No Pain against Psychic. So you get a 5-up into Psychic, right? I didn't think about that in response to like grenades and stuff. Because grenade is damage that doesn't trigger your reactive reanimations, right? Because it's not an attack. And the same with Doombolt, and the same with, I would say, Vortex of Doom, but that's gone. Like Typhus's psychic power. But the spider can help jump that off. I didn't even think about that, chat. That's a good point. That's a good call out. Love seeing Awakened Dynasty played. Do you? Awakened Dynasty is a great example of everything I hate about 10th edition, but that's okay. Just asks you the question, can you kill this unit? And if the answer is no, you lose. But I mean, it's fair and it is on theme. So like, I do appreciate that. It's you know, it is how Necrons do play canonically. So I guess in that way, it's a victory. Watching it being played though makes me want to gouge my eyes out. It's like so it's so boring. I think it's very interesting if you're the Necron player, I imagine. Because the Necron player has like it's an interesting stat check army where you have to operate the stat check correctly, and if you don't, you can still die. Like, because all of its defense, a lot of its defensive attributes are reactive, like model placement effects. You have to be on point with where you like your coherency and where you positioned. So I bet as the Necron player, it's actually super fun. As the person playing against it though, it feels so interminable. You just watch every unit survive on 1 and then reanimate back to full, and you just like want to kill yourself. Oh man. Stop playing Awakened because it was tech heavy and boring. Yeah, it takes a certain kind of person for sure. Especially this version. This version's wild. I don't know if I've ever seen one that's has such a dearth of damage. It is just all defense all the time. The best form of offense is a good defense. Watch your army since the start of the edition go from wiping them with no problem to it being a real hassle. Bro, try playing Tyrion at the start of the edition of this army. Oh my god, this is disgusting. You're like, well, none of my abilities do anything. And also I killed 6 models and you have a 4+ Field pain against every gun in my army. Cool. Sick, dude. Let's go. Gloom Prisms used to be incredibly broken. Super frustrating for the first 5 games. Then it's fun for 20. Then it's boring. It's like a perfect bell curve. You hit the sweet spot right in the middle when you finally learn how to play the detachment. That makes total sense, though. I do think there's a certain kind of person, right, who, and I will admit to being that kind of person sometimes myself, where sometimes if your opponent is just just getting progressively more frustrated with your army mechanics, it is like a little funny. And so like watching your opponent constantly be like, why isn't Illumor Sarah's dead yet? I thought I've killed him 6 times already. You're like, I don't know, I made my Field of Pains and then I reanimated him. Like that's I'm just doing my thing, man. I don't know what to tell you. I can understand that being there's a little bit of like it's a little bit of fun. All right, should we talk about the second place placer over here, chat? Play Awaken to get 3 deep disgust in size out of your opponent. You lock in your secondaries. You're right. Like, I'm gonna take tactical. You like draw in a 3rd box of the score sheet that's like opponents like angst, I guess. People just hate the respawning cultists. Yeah, I mean, well, the difference with the respawning accursed cultists, that's a little bit of a different problem, because unlike Necron warriors, they also just killed your whole army. Necron warriors at least don't do anything, right? You can like stack up a bunch of buffs and you can maybe do like 5 damage with them, or like kill some infantry. Fair enough. Good job, Necron warriors. We're proud of you. Or like they deliver Oracan and he beats up a vehicle one time. But like a Cursed Cultist would be like, all right, our threat range is 30 and we full hit and wound reroll with 1,000 2 damage attacks. And now you're dead. And you're like, okay, well, that was dumb. And also they're hard to kill and also they regenerate. Okay, cool. And they're OC2. Old Cursed Cultists were, they had a lot going for them. I don't know. Played Awakened Dynasty in an RT this weekend. Your opponent complained about not being able to kill your warriors, and he was playing Imperial Knights. Yeah, get fucked. That is kind of a counter, right? Like, Imperial Knights like cannot. They traditionally cannot kill big units in one go, right? They have slightly too few attacks to kill like a big brick of guys in one shot, and so then you just pull out a line of sight and then reanimate them. And so, like, I don't know, it's like a hard counter to them. I don't know. If you're playing the stat check faction, don't be upset about being stat checked back. That's stupid. That is incredible, though. I can't believe I could you imagine playing an army where half of the game plan is just hoping my opponent doesn't have the profiles to kill me? That's incredible. Why would any Necron player do this? As I angrily pack up my 3 Cerastus Knight Atroposes and Canis Rex. I can't believe anyone would play 40k this way. That's not my 40k. That's not how I would want to play it. All right, chat. Should we stop making fun of Knight players and go back to talking about Adeptus Custodes? Jordan Goulet over here, second place, 5-0 at the same event, Tap Games GT. It's where the true deviants play disposed of double Gatling guns. Do they even kill Necron warriors? It's like not even close, right? There's no way, right? There's no actual way because they shoot 36. They should hit. It's usually just like 3s, right? But you're -1. Let's say you do the ignore modifier thing, right? There's an ignore modifier strat in Infernal Lands. Let's say, benefit of the doubt, you're ignoring modifiers. So you hit 24 times and you wound 16. And then they save 8. And then they lose 8 guys, then they reanimate 7. I think, and then you shoot like 20 little shots, like missile launcher and the stubbers, whatever. You kill like 5 more guys. So you've netted like 6 Necron warriors and they pull out a line of sight. I don't know. Is that good? I'm not sure. Oh, at 36 with sustain. Oh, from the lance upgrade. Yeah, the Malefic Surge. All right. So you're basically, you're spending a CP. You get an extra 6 out of the sustains.
Black Wolf 0009 donated $5 through Super Chat. Necron players want to cause nightmares and that's the win for them, lol.
I mean, lore accurate. Our faction includes the literal embodiment of death and a unit called a Psychomancer who summons little angry skulls. I mean, I think it makes sense. If I was a Necron player, that's what I would want to do too. But like, I don't know the sustains that you like. 3 more kills on a good day, assuming you convert most of them and your opponent like doesn't save that well. So you've killed like 9 warriors with your strat and your Malefic Surge and everything, and then they're out of line of sight and then they regenerate. I don't know, chat. If you get 2 despoilers on it, it's probably okay. But even then, you have to chew through 22 of them to actually get to a character and kill the unit, and otherwise they're going to start reanimating. All right, we've riffed enough. Let's talk about some. Let's talk about some Custodes. We're over here with a Lions of the Emperor detachment with 1 million characters, double Dawn Eagle Jetbike Shield Captain, double Alaris Terminator Shield Captain, and Mana Mortis, so +1 or plus strength, AP, and damage. Superior creation. So the That's the regeneration, right? When he dies? Is that right? It is on a 2+. He regenerates back on the battlefield. I hate that. Why are we paying 25 points for an ability that only works once per game on a 2? What if we roll a 1? We just paid 25 points for nothing? It's stupid. 2 units of Custodian Guard, 2 units of Alaris Custodians for the captains to hop into, 2 units of Virtus Praetors for the other captains to hop into, Prosecutors, Witch Seekers, Witch Seekers, Witch Seekers, Calidus Assassin, Inquisitor Draxus. So every single unit's getting a character. We have Trajan Valoris. So that's like super offensive Trajan Valoris. And I would not be surprised if we also started that guy in reserve and then rapid ingressed him, because he can moment shackle twice per game, because you could guild and champion it, for 12 strength 10 AP2 3 damage melee attacks, potentially +1 to wound, sustained hits, full wound rerolls. So he swings into like a knight. I don't know. Say a knight. He gets 12 attacks. He should full convert because he has sustained hits. He wounds on forceful rerolls. So he should hand your opponent 8 AP2 3 damage saves, which if you save on 5s, means you save what? 5.5? So he hands you 16 damage and then pays a CP and goes, I'm going to do it again next turn. That's wild. That's so much damage. You have to deliver him, which is usually why he's in the Warden squads instead of the Custodian Guard squads. But his output is so astronomically insane once he attacks an enemy on an objective, that he'll just cut a knight in half, and then the rest of the Custodian Guard should finish off whatever went in, assuming they're still alive. Plus, he's got like 2-3 damage gunshots that you can Sentinel Storm to shoot twice. With wound rerolls as well, so he could like clip Terminators with his gun. He goes so crazy inside this unit. The problem is you have to get him there. So I would hazard to guess that he's teleporting to get a sick rapid ingress drop. And then we have the other Custodian Guard squad that could get lone operative from Kyria Draxus, and then she shoots 1,000,000 times. She gets rerolls, devastating wounds. She does 1,000,000 damage. We have all hopefully at this point seen and understood what Kyria Draxus does inside a unit of Custodian Guards. It's been a while since we've seen the Trajan Valoris build, though. We're then running triple Witch Seekers, and then these 4 units of these 4 little tiny units of Alaris of Custodians. 2 units of 2 Virtus Praetors, 2 units of 3 Alaris Custodians, which is pretty wild, actually. Very rarely we see all 4 with captains in them. But if we can get the Donnie Eagle Jet Bike Shield captains with a full unit to shoot or to like fight and move, with their once per game ability multiple times, that's 4 of those activations over the course of the game. So you can sandpaper like basically no one else, right? Because you can potentially get you can get 4 activations out of Dawn Eagle jet bikes without your opponent being able to counterattack you, which is actually kind of wild if you're set up for it. It's very difficult because the units are physically super large. So sometimes you're not able to get out of line of sight, even with the fallback move after you fight. But even so, right, forcing your opponent to push forward just means that your like rapid ingresses are stronger. You can like deliver your Alaris shield captains more easily. So it all makes sense. This is just crazy. This is a wild unit. Here for the riffing, it's all about the riff. Hell yeah, dude. That's why it's fun. That's why 40k is a funny game. Trajan pretty good as a solo rapid ingress threat in the build. Popping defensive buff twice, so you're hard for a single 40 mil dread base drop. Yeah, if you just use moment shackle for the invuln save, you have to do it in the fight phase though. So he just gets shot, assuming that you are, you're like, I mean, it depends on what your opponent can do. Obviously, like he is strong and he's hard to screen out, so that does make sense. Yeah, I don't hate that. But he can't protect himself from shooting at all. Besides just being a 2+A with a feel no pain. He's a 5+ feel no pain and 7 wounds, so he's basically like 10 wounds. Shooting at him is like trying to kill. It's like trying to kill a baby knight almost, right? He's like sort of he's worse toughness but better saving characteristics than like an armiger. And and 10 wounds. And I guess instead of 14 with a 6+. Which is probably like 7 with a 5+ versus 14 with a 6 is not dissimilar. So maybe not a whole armature, like a predator. It's like killing a predator on a 40 mil base, which is a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot to try to do. Custodes dreadnoughts are gorgeous. Need to have plastic versions. Well, the regular the Venerable Contemptor does. It's just the plastic version's ugly as sin. The one that looks bad is the plastic one. I'm sure eventually they'll get to that for 30k, and they'll do plastic Telemon dreadnoughts and stuff, and they'll probably get like a data shade update and stuff. They're a little weird that they're just a Redemptor right now, which is it's a bit strange for the platform, but I guess that they're similar size, so it kind of makes sense. So that's interesting. I guess I didn't necessarily appreciate that you could just rock Trajan as his own guy and then use the Custodian guards as a separate squad. And then or attach them if you need the output, right? Because if you need Trajan to just like cut something in half, you're into an army that's full of just big chunky boys that you're going to need the extra damage output to kill. You could just put Trajan in the unit. Or if your opponent's playing like Eldar, they have a million activations, Trajan can just go in and one tap, whatever he wants 2 times. So that's interesting technology. I don't know if I guess I have seen him in that capacity before. I just hadn't really internalized it, which is cool. I like that. That's pretty sweet. Telemon in plastic. I wonder if the new Saturnine Dreadnought's too big, right? He's like half again as large as a Telemon because he's enormous. I would hazard a guess. All right, chat. Any other factions that we want to take a peek for? Those were the armies that I had earmarked to talk about today. Just kidding. I had almost forgotten. I have almost forgotten that there is a undefeated T'au Empire, like Gliniseer, at the Utah Cup. This was a large event. It was 109 players, so major level event. Had 2 6-0s. Oh, actually, I didn't realize this. I just reread. 2 of them were T'au Empire players. Wait, is T'au goated? Hold up. Is T'au really good, chat? They won an event post update, and they had 2 0 loss results in a major immediately, pre-update as well. Is that the case? Is that real? Hot damn, chat. What's interesting is that I talked about, I think this exact list. Hold up. I talked about one from a different. Oh my god! I think my mouse is like bugging out right now. It's hard to move it. The result from Tronderdome this weekend, which was post update, was the same build. So I think I've already talked about this list because I think it's identical. Yeah, it has that double Kroottalk Riders, so that was really cool. Just like a sick unit. 60 points, you get 10 toughness 6 wounds. Are you kidding me? and 16 2-damage gunshots. They're not good gunshots, but you get 16 of them. Or excuse me, 8 of them. I think it's 8 in range and then 8 in melee. So I think it's 16 2-damage attacks, all told. Because I think they're 4 2-damage base melee attacks, that right? Yeah. So it's 16 AP 1 2-damage attacks between melee and range. And I guess they also hit you with the dude on top too. So they actually have 6 attacks each if they're sweeping. Kroottalk Riders seem kind of insane to be honest. I mean, they've always been good. I've always been surprised that T'au armies don't just start with 3 of them. But I guess when you have an army that is constructed so much around little tiny units of guys, getting additional little tiny units of guys isn't necessarily relevant, but their profile is very impressive. T'au fine now? Maybe T'au won because all the opponents forgot what they do. Indeed, chat. Somebody in my video today was like, don't forget, I think I'd mentioned that there's a breacher team, which is pretty common in Kauyon. So it's Kauyon, so sustained hits, battle round 3 onwards. I was like, it's pretty common in Kauyon because you get wound rerolls, which is good for sustained hits because you don't need lethals necessarily because you're probably converting wounds into low toughness stuff anyway. So the lethal hits aren't that relevant. However, sustained hits is just extra damage. And I was like, in the past, we used to take the whole brick. It was Cadre Fireblade, Million Gun Drones, and Exemplar of the Kauyon. So we got his ability on turn 2 onwards, and he could like disrupt your opponent's scoring. And then they nerfed Kauyon, and nobody plays that anymore because it's not sustained 2 anymore. It's sustained 1. And somebody was like, "Don't forget, it's not sustained 2 anymore." And I was like, I literally said that in the video. But that's okay. I appreciate people calling it out again. But yeah, I guess as a quick summary, you can watch if you want a deeper discussion about this list. I talked about it in my video this morning at a different event where it also went undefeated. I think it went 4-0-1. I think it tied in the final game or in the semifinal game randomly with the other undefeated player who then both of them subsequently won their follow-up game to tie for the final placement and go to tiebreakers. It's Shadow Sun, 10 Breachers, 10 Crew Carnivores, 10 Pathfinders, 2 units of 3 Stealth Battlesuits, a unit of 5 Vespid Stingwing, this cool unit of 2 Kroottalk Riders, and then a trillion guns, a trillion big guns on robots. Ghostkill Battlesuit, 3 Riptide Battlesuits, double Skyray, double Piranha Hammerhead with a Railgun, important, as well as a Devilfish. And it seems like that's the build because multiple players have gone 5-0 with that. Now there was another one. I guess I'll talk about this other one at the same event. Let me pull up the results here. Here we go. There was another one. This one was 5-0-1. It drew. Oh my god! I'm just looking at these scores real quick. These scores are insane, by the way, and it helps, I guess, that T'au have a trillion utility units, so their baseline scoring is really high. The top placing player had 3 100s and otherwise dropped 10 points. They dropped 10 victory points over 6 games, an average of 2.2 points per game. Their average score was like 97.5. Is that right? No, like 97.2 or 97.7. That's insanity. Or 98.2, I think. The other T'au player drew in 1 game, but otherwise dropped 9 points over 5 games. These scores are insane. T'au overpowered. T'au on the chopping block. Holy shit! They did not just win; they dominated. It was actual domination of this event. So Michael Estrada over here did have that tie in round 1, but we're playing Montka, so we get the lethal hits in the early game. Battle round 4 that ends up turning off. But a benefit to Montka, and I've talked about this quite a bit, and I'll talk about it again. But a benefit of Montka is it encourages you to play hyper aggressively. So if you go first, you can alpha strike your opponent into absolute oblivion. Because you can put a bunch of scouting units up on the middle of the table. What we haven't done is taken strike swiftly in this army, so we don't have a lot of scouting. That you can potentially give a bunch of transport scout, and then it has a lot of like transport synergies, and it gives everybody assault. So you can like run breachers basically into your opponent's deployment zone, top of turn 1, and just laser cannon them off the table. We're not playing that because maybe it's too aggressive, or maybe the build's not designed for that. But first of all, we have Strategic Conqueror on the Ethereal, and he's gonna hide in the back all game and just vibe. He gives you +1 OC on a particular objective marker until the end of the battle. It doesn't matter what round it is. So as long as he can survive to round 5, he's really good going second, because you just like pick either your expansion objective or the center objective, and you take it with basically anyone with the +1 OC bonus. We have Dark Strider for anti-deep strike threat. That's pretty good for Death Guard right now because you can lock out Death Rod Terminators, which is big. We have double Ghostkill Battlesuits for the front line. Triple Hammerhead Gunships. Oh, geez, okay. Running Ion Cannons because the higher volume is good. It's interesting. I think they've done a cool thing with the Hammerhead Gunships in particular because they have given them such a powerful effect on a pretty high impact, high volume weapon, which is the only downside of the ion cannon is it's relatively low strength. But if you give that lethal hits, it makes up for it quite a bit. It's almost +1 to wound. It's not quite, but it's almost +1 to wound. Which means that you don't feel bad about taking this weapon that's a little bit more flexible with that buff. Whereas in Montka, you want to take the lower volume, higher impact gun for the chance that you double your damage. So they've actually constructed, in T'au specifically, they've constructed a situation where both turret weapons on the hammerhead gunship are equally valuable, depending on the detachment you're playing in. And I would love to see more of that in 40k. Unfortunately, that's very rare, but they did do it well here. We have a carnivore squad, triple piranha, riptide battlesuit, riptide battlesuit, riptide battlesuit, triple stealth battlesuits, Vespid for utility. So lots of forward operation, 2 piranhas. So we don't need the strike swiftly because so much of the army is deploying in the middle anyway. So the crew carnivore scout, all the piranhas scout, and the ghost keel scout, or infiltrate, excuse me. So if you wanted to, you could absolutely move and block your opponent turn 1 just by forcing your stuff down their throat. You also have an auto 6 advance, so you can move the piranhas. I believe they scout 9. I'll double check myself on that. But you can move them 29 inches top of turn 1 if they scout and then auto 6 advance and then move 14. Yeah, scout 9 inches. So if you're in a terrain layout where there are a couple choke points that your opponent needs to move up, or importantly as well, like line of sight blockers that they want to stage behind, you can simply occupy all of those spaces with piranhas on the first turn so that you can't get into positions that you want to strike at the center objectives on the bottom of turn 2. So if you go first, the piranhas can set the tempo, like basically in your opponent's deployment zone, and either force them to charge the piranhas, which they might be able to do, and that obviously could bring them out into line of sight, depends on the board state. Not engage with them, in which case they're taking a turn off their movement phase, or they simply they move out in the open and then you get to shoot them with all of your lethal hit guns. Because what you want to be doing is beginning the engagement on the top of turn 2, because that gives you 2 full rounds of getting your detachment ability active. If your opponent is allowed to play cagey and just stage for battle round 2 and then maybe fight in battle round 3, your detachment ability is not going to do enough. But having so much forward operation lets you sort of set the engagement how you want. And that gives the army a good benefit going first, which is what you need, because if you're going second, you have Strategic Conqueror, you have bottom 5 scoring, you have Challenger cards, you have a million bonuses to help yourself out in order to win in the late game anyway, even though your early game damage is higher. So it's a very smart build. I like it. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. So T'au are good, but Harpies were nerfed. I know, chat. There's no justice in this world. The Harpy is not playable. No! Oh, bad. A list designed to make knights actually hesitant to throw their weight around in the early game. Yeah, because if they push forward. The other thing, too, is that Montka, I literally just played against this, a very similar army to this, with hammerhead gunships and riptide battlesuits and ghost kills. It was a little different. It was a little bit more aggressive and had some crisis battlesuits and stuff. But it was very similar. And the interesting thing was that if you kill anything in Montka, you can they can pay a CP to full hit reroll against you if you kill any non-Kroot unit. So you push up like the piranhas into the middle of the table, and then you just hold up a command point. And let's say they're like, all right, that's fine. I'm going to kill them with a Lancer and absorb the center of the battlefield. And you're like, okay, everything rerolls hits into lethals. So this massive amount of lethal hit, like multi-damage shooting, that's like not the highest AP value ever, so it doesn't really care about punching through 4+ invuln saves, is just going to rinse you. You just fucking die. So if you are playing super heavies or these big high impact units, you have to be very careful who you kill enemies with, because getting hit rerolls against you on round 2 or 3 is lethal. Is no pun intended. Is a death sentence, because they will straight up just kill you with a million gunshots with lethal hits. It's actually pretty neat. It's pretty cool. Do you love fishing for sixes? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. But anyway, chats, that's what's going on. That's what we got. That's what I got to talk about. We talked about all the T'au. I'm going to pop off in a little bit here because I have to go prep for the invitational game. It's going to be right after this, which I'll have to leave for in a couple of minutes. But if anybody has any more factions that they want to talk about, now's the time. Otherwise, I'll sign off in a little bit here. The T'au battlesuits have ridiculous armor and toughness. The big ones do. The little ones are actually kind of like laughably easy to kill. The Crisis battlesuits are really not very impressive. There was a scene in the Exodite where they're like charging a it sort of showcased how silly Crisis battlesuits are, but like it there's like a bunch of Crisis battlesuits that are like charging like a Warlord Titan, I think. And they're just getting, like, it's defensive guns. It's like little stubbers and stuff are just fucking, like, acing all of them. They're just getting, like, lasered down. It's like, all right. But part of it is, like, that's, you know, a fan project that was later bought by, or absorbed by Games Workshop. So some of it's, like, the animation's not, like, the highest quality ever. But it's, like, they mostly just, like, sort of statically fly around. Whee! I was like, you could just be a little airplane, my guy. Why do you have a robot? Why are you in a robot? I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. I don't think T'au battlesuits look very good. I might be alone in that opinion, but they're not my favorite models in the game. Need to check it out. Yeah, it's on Warhammer Plus now. It used to be on YouTube. For a hot minute it was on YouTube. But it was cool. It was one of the first canonical appearances in live action of a Kroot war sphere, one of my favorite ships in all of 40k. Partially because it almost doesn't make sense in the context of the universe. So Kroot, the tribalistic cannibals, let me pull up the image. The tribalistic cannibals, known for, I don't know, like eating, like infighting and eating each other, are capable of building like moon-sized spaceships that are just these big like battle droid looking things, and they're really cool. I think they look rad. And the Exodite had a war sphere in it, which I was very excited about when it happened. I believe so. They used to have a miniature for Battlefleet Gothic, and then I think they got added to Battlefleet Gothic Armada, which is where a lot of this stuff comes from. It's I don't know. It almost doesn't make sense to me that Kroot would build these. But I like the look of them so much that it's okay. And I also just generally like Kroot. So any Kroot doing things is always cool. I read a Caiaphas K novel a while ago while I was working on my Final Liberation video to get in the mood for talking about commissars and stuff. And there's one where he hangs out with a Kroot for a while. And the Kroot character is very cool, and then immediately tries to go into melee and dies instantly, which is one of the most the perfect mesh of lore and game mechanics I've ever seen in my life. He's treated as a noble warrior from a powerful a species of powerful warrior tribes, and as soon as he gets engaged in any sort of physical combat, immediately dies. He and every single Kroot in the book in one scene, almost literally off camera. It's incredible. We are a Kroot channel now, indeed. So that was I kind of wish they like Kroot. I don't know. I sort of wish Kroot had a better track record in the canon of 40k, but at least they have very closely meshed Kroot's effectiveness on the battlefield and the lore implications, because they are not good at fighting in melee. I remember for a while they at least had like a bunch of attacks in like early editions. I think their rifle because their rifle has knives on it, it counted as 2 melee weapons, which give you +1 attack. If I remember correctly, that was the rule for a while. Because it has 2 knives on it, and that made total sense to me. So they had a higher than average number of melee attacks, but not anymore. Now they just are like basic idiots. Toughest 3 even. Can't even afford an extra toughness value for these guys. Oh boy. Love the all Kroot detachment. I think it's okay. I think Kroottalks are the weakest part of the Kroot aesthetic. Although I don't hate them. I think focusing it almost entirely on Kroottalks, it makes me a little bit sad. And like horde stuff. I don't know. I wish things were independently powerful and we didn't need to hoard them to be good, but just me. That's just me. It's a big stat check. Anyway, chat. We need a Kroot scientist representative, indeed. Maybe that new Dark Heresy game apparently has a Kroot MC, right? There's a Kroot party member. Maybe they'll be cool. Maybe they'll be cool and do cool stuff. I don't know. Maybe they'll change everyone's mind on Kroot, and we'll finally get some Kroot representation. All Kroot detachment won another very small GT. Yeah, I do know that already. But it was using old points value, so I didn't cover it in my video. That detachment's unironically really strong. it's actually really good. So. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and hop off, and I will redirect you over to the T5 Best Team Invitational game. It's going to happen in just under an hour. I'm going to go ahead and get that set up. I'm going to need to do some work to try to set up 2 simultaneous streams. We'll see if I can get it done. If I can, it'll be sick. Otherwise, I will simply record the second game, and then I'll put it up on my VOD channel later. But either way, I will see you in, I don't know, 40 minutes or so over there. Keep it classy, folks. Have happy wargaming. Thanks for hopping in. And I will be live tomorrow as well with another video. I think I might want to talk about my wish list, my 11th edition wish list a little bit. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to talk about, but I will be live. And then I have a game, Demons versus Thousand Suns, scheduled on Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday evening. That's going to be a team game. And other than that, that's what's going on this week. So cheers, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you later. Bye.